I'm Kristine Jonas, and I'm from the Tower Sedan, Minnesota, and I run the Virginia Farmers Market Hub, which is a cross between a farmers market and a grocery store. We do online sales for farmers um, to institutions like schools, and we also find grants or help write grants to purchase from farmers. And I've been doing this for a couple years now, and I've just been able to get into 9 area schools selling food to them. Apples primarily to most of them, but a few of them buy more than apples because of the grants that we have. They're able to buy meat and vegetables and things like that too. So my job is to help farmers and send them grants and send them other things that could possibly help them in their farming venture to support them. Because as you see, we're in a very uh, woodland area, but we still have fields and we still have farms up here. And local food and sustainability is really important to us. I'm one of 7 Minnesota farmers market hubs across the state, and we work together doing this type of thing. So it's not only me affected, it's them as well. And so we've been working really hard to get a more sustainable food system and lay a foundation for that, like it used to be before we had all this stuff up here. So that's what.
That's a lot of really important work. Can you talk just a tiny bit more about the kinds of farms and farmers you work with, both in terms of size and location?
So it's just very small farms, and because we don't have a lot of land up here, we do have some farms have a decent amount, and they have a little bit of acreage. But you can grow a lot in hoop houses, and that extends the growing season too. Farming up here tends to be for meat, but a lot of times people will raise it themselves and they will sell it to their neighbors and do it more that way. But these folks are doing sales, wholesale sales through me and sometimes other places like co-ops and things like that. And I also buy vegetables in season from farmers. And there are some farms that are able to store a little bit more, like the food farm in Renshaw, but most farms don't have that facility. So we're hoping to figure out ways to make that happen as well. So
And you were talking about grants that make this all possible. And are you referring to federal grants, or are you talking about other?
Minnesota, Minnesota Department of Ag has grants, and then there are other grants, but yes, federal grants, because those grants come through the USDA and they funnel into the MDA and then they come to us. So that's been very problematic lately. The Minnesota, the MDA grants are more stable for us, um, especially now, than the USDA grants, but they're stuck in a bad position too because we signed contracts with the MDA and they had contracts with the USDA, and we're stuck in a funding freeze right now. The USDA just cut off talking to the MDA, so that's problematic. So there's not much information or knowledge about what is going to happen or what is going on. We may get paid, we may not get paid, we're not sure. Because we already spent money on the product. How it works is we figure out what we need to order, and then we buy it from the farmer, and then we've proved that we've bought it in multiple different ways through photos of checks and accounts and everything. And then they submit it, and then they get paid, and then they pay us. So we already have spent the money in a lot of cases. It's just very frustrating because there's already delays in getting payments because of the process that we go through. And so having it delayed further is challenging, and then having it frozen altogether is very challenging. So, but yeah, January around the 20th or so, maybe a little bit later than that, is when we found out that there were funding freezes. Probably probably the week after, maybe. And it's just scary because we didn't know, we didn't expect it. We didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. There's a lot of misinformation out there. People think that the portals, that they use the line, the portal is closed or the portal is open. Well, the portal has been closed continuously for this so far for us. And the other portals for other people are opening and closing. They aren't staying. So there's a lot of not knowing what's going on at all. And there's a lot of questions about what is actually happening. The Virginia Farmers Market Hub is funded through Renewing the Countryside, and they get grants, and their grants right now are threatened, and they aren't sure how much longer they're going to be able to pay us for that because there's no clarification.
Incredibly confusing and chaotic and hard to
Yes, yeah,
deal with.
and trying to be hopeful, and I think you just have to trust that there's good people out there at the local level working for you and in the state of Minnesota working for you. But it's very frustrating because it's already a challenging job because of the region that we live in, because it is so cold and it's windy, as you can see. So it's already challenging to grow the product. And then you make these relationships with these farmers. You, when you say you're going to do something, you want to fulfill that and you want to come through for them. I want to keep my word. And uh, it's extremely frustrating. So, yeah, it's been really challenging.
Can you talk about kind of what you're hearing also from the farmers that you work with and how they're being impacted by these funding freezes?
Some of the product was already purchased, but the problem is that some of them already order their seed or start planning for their crops for what we're going to buy, or they order their chicks or whatever, and then they plan, they already have their butchering set up. So that comes into question whether I'm going to be able to fulfill those orders or not. It's just really important foundational work. And the farm to school work is extremely important because we're teaching kids and the staff how to eat locally again and seasonally. And if this goes away and if the funding for Renewing the Countryside is stopped, then all this progress that we've made in purchasing food and building this trust can stop too. So it's really important that we have partnerships locally and in the state, not just federally, because we know we can trust our neighbors. And this is not a partisan issue. This is across the state. I buy from farmers on both sides of the fence. And I think it's really important that we work together for a more sustainable future. And it has to do with taking care of each other and making sure that everyone's okay in our communities. And our farmers are so important for our communities. And we want to have rural America, rural Minnesota, still, we want to be able to live in the places that we live. And we want to be able to build a system where we can support ourselves. So it's not like we want the federal funding in a sense. We want to be able to do this, but it's a way to build a foundation for future sales locally. And so we have to figure out different partnerships and different ways and hope that people will buy local food. It is more expensive because it costs more. And we're a lot of times used to cheaper food that is shipped from other countries or further away. And that's going to be affected too, as you see with the egg prices going up. So it's actually cheaper to buy from farmers now than from the grocery store.
Thank you. Is there any last things that you would want policymakers or the public to understand about this situation right now?
Well, a lot of people think that we're just freaking out for no reason. And the thing is it's up here. It's not just far away. It's happening all the way across the state of Minnesota. It's not a distant thing. And jobs will be affected. People will lose their jobs. if we don't do something. And we're not freaking out for no reason. This is real, actual stuff. Our funding is not coming through. It is not moving anywhere. And the MDA is trying to really help. People are really want to help, but their hands are tied. And I need people to understand that. And it is not a partisan issue. This is farmers and people on both sides of the aisle that are being affected. And it's here in northern Minnesota, northeastern Minnesota, where I am. And it's also across the state and into other states across the nation. So it's really has a big impact, and we need to figure something out. We signed the contracts in trust that we would be paid and that we would have the money to pay our farmers. And they are possibly voiding our contracts, the USDA. And where's the trust in that? It's very frustrating. If we have to show documentation at like triple amounts and lawyers have to go over our things, then why aren't they being held accountable for their part of it? You know, because we do show our documentation. We prove that we are doing what we're doing. We have photos to back it up, you know. So we're working really hard, and to have people mock that is extremely frustrating and disheartening. And we need to do better as people and realize that we aren't each other's enemies. We need to work together.